Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Extra Shot, which comes to you from Telecom TV's very own virtual coffee shop. My name is Ray Lemaitre, I'm the editorial director at Telecom TV, and I'm here to host the programme that looks back at some of the themes from our recent Open Access Summit. As ever, I am joined by my fellow lovers of the roasted bean, Telecom TV's Director of Content, Guy Daniels, and Chris Lewis, MD of Lewis Insight. Good to see you both again. Chris, how happy are you with your broadband service, as we're going to talk about broadband today? Are you happy with your bit rate?
Ray, I'm usually focused on the performance rather than the bit rate, and I must admit, my 70 meg broadband, both in the house and in the Lewis Insight office, has performed admirably over the last 18 months. So yes, very happy indeed.
Excellent, good to hear it. And Guy, you're in the wilds of North England. Are you still on dial-up?
Ha ha, how droll, Ray. No, we have fairly decent, not quite state-of-the-art VDSL, but we are about to be one of the lucky beneficiaries of one of those new full fibre competitors that are appearing all over the UK now, and about time too.
Absolutely, and excellent. Glad to hear that it's coming to your area, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So let's get stuck into our main topic here today, and that's the revamp of fixed broadband access architecture to more open, multi-vendor and programmable systems. Developments in this area have been underway for a few years now, but it's a little bit under the radar, especially when compared with Open RAN, which is making headlines every week these days. So what's it all about? Why would an operator even want to mess with their existing broadband network setup? Well, we have an answer to that question from today's special guest, Adtran's CTO for EMEA and APAC, Ronan Kelly. But before we talk open access, we need to find out what Ronan orders when he goes to the coffee shop. Is he a coffee or a tea fan?
So fundamentally, I don't function without coffee. I'd be a 5 to 6 cup a day person, and coffee of choice would be cappuccino, typically with an extra shot in there.
What's this? What is going on? Is Ronan trying to curry favour here by mentioning the name of this programme in his answer? He likes his coffee with an extra shot. Well, Mr. Ronan Kelly, you sly devil, it worked because you have won a special extra shot prize, which we haven't discussed, identified or procured, and which you will likely never receive. But, well, you've won it anyway. And there's no doubt which beverage camp Ronan's in, and we'll be adding him to our revamped containerised beverage function leaderboard, which we will see later on. And Chris, I understand as well that you've got some coffee news for us.
I have indeed, Ray. As part of my birthday weekend, I acquired a DeLonghi machine, which is going to feed the beans straight in, produce the immediate espresso coffee. So I'm very excited and open to recommendations from other extra shot joiners as to which beans I should be feeding into my machine in the future.
Well, I think that Guy and I might be able to help you there, and one day maybe we'll tap one of the multiple extra shot guests who have referenced coffee beans from Hawaii as their favourite. I think you need to get the Hawaiian experience at some point running through your DeLonghi. That is a sentence that no one will ever repeat ever again in the history of mankind. But let's get back to open access networking. And once I had determined that Ronan Kelly is the telecoms industry's equivalent of a coffee Iron Man, I asked him, what advantages do network operators gain by deploying open access broadband network infrastructure?
The main advantages that they get is the flexibility at both the hardware side of things, but also on the software and management and orchestration side of things. They get great flexibility with the open interfaces to develop their automation once and be able to deliver that automation across a multi-vendor environment should they choose to go down that path. But also as well, should new software applications that can enhance the subscriber experiences come forward in the years ahead, they can very easily integrate those into the network infrastructures that they've deployed. A fine example of this is Adtran partnering with Plume, for example, to enhance the Wi-Fi experience of consumers over the OpenSync interface that's been deployed on the Adtran hardware.
A good example indeed. So, Guy, a lot of similarities there with Open RAN, flexibility, choice, automation, the option for multi-vendor best-of-breed deployments. How important is this to broadband network operators, do you think?
Yeah, good question, Ray. I'm not sure it's as important, although it's certainly a factor. I think the business dynamics are different for fixed access providers than they are for cellular providers, and so too are the economics. I think it's becoming more important, especially for the incumbents as the old copper networks get upgraded or in many cases just ripped out and replaced, and perhaps even more so for those operators with both fixed and cellular businesses. Converging approaches there makes a lot of sense. We're certainly seeing a lot of activity from the likes of the Broadband Forum, TIP and the ONF and others. For the likes of these new private equity funded altnets that are popping up, I just don't think open networking is the prime deciding factor. But I know Chris takes a closer look in this area than I do, so I'm very keen to hear Chris's thoughts.
Okay, well, Chris, the baton has been handed over to you. Does this sound like a useful development for telcos?
I think it emphasises the fact that the telcos are looking to benefit from that disaggregation at all levels. That the benefits of having the ability to choose different hardware, different software, but then most importantly, as Ronan says, to manage and orchestrate is just so important. In fact, it's also happening in the data center as well. There's open standards there like Sonic, which are starting to allow that disaggregation of the management there. So as we see that blurring of lines between the cloud data center, the enterprise data center and the telcos, it's really important to make sure that the openness is there to allow what we're always asking for in the industry, to allow that innovation to be brought through. And it also allows us to move more towards the software orientation, that flexibility that we keep asking for, to both enable the telcos to manage the service and also for us to get the service that we require. So yeah, I think openness is key. One really important issue, and you touched upon it there, Guy, that different operators will have different emphasis on this. We tend to get examples from the large telcos about what they're doing. Certainly it's true in Open RAN to begin with, and we're seeing it with some of this in the open fixed market. But actually what's really more important for the sort of the health of the industry as a whole is that the smaller operators are also able to benefit from that. And the more open APIs we leverage, the more work that's done in that area across all domains will allow more and more people to come in, which in turn will put pressure on the bigger telcos to deliver better services, but actually leads to a healthier delivery of broadband for everybody.
Fantastic points there, Chris. Thank you. Well, there's no doubt that the mobile access network is getting more attention, but for me, these developments in the fixed broadband access are just as important. I mean, for sure, this is a different network architecture physically once you get to the last mile, but there's a great deal of potential shared infrastructure. Indeed, Deutsche Telekom has noted that it plans to use the same servers, the same IT underlay to support its fixed broadband services as it will for its Open RAN deployments. And as fixed access networks become truly multi-service, supporting residential, enterprise, wholesale and backhaul on the same links, being able to automate the management of the capacity of these networks and to be able to add virtualized functions and software applications as needed is going to be vitally important to the efficient running of these networks. So a really important development here.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Ray, picking up on the developments from those multi-access operators. We learned during our panel discussion on open access that here in the UK, Openreach launched its first disaggregated solution this year, and as might be expected, there's been a number of challenges as well as the potential opportunities, especially when they add SDN into the mix. And Peter Bell, Director of Network Technologies, told us that he was now deep into proofs of concept work with his vendor partners around SDN. And also Telefónica's Daniel Cortez discussed their open broadband program, where they're not just looking at disaggregated access, but also a major change to their architecture to move across to open interfaces with a goal of introducing new services and applications, just as Chris has been talking about a few moments ago. So, he sees openness as a key trend in the coming years. So, if you haven't watched that panel, I really do urge people to watch it if they haven't done so already.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a great discussion. Okay, thanks, chaps. Now, the good news for everyone, I think, is that the past year in particular has seen a tremendous new wave of investment in fibre access broadband network builds. And it seems like a lot of the large investors have decided that digital infrastructure is a decent investment, and one that will provide decent returns for them. So, I mean, this has got to be encouraging, right? In the UK alone, there have been at least 3 new investment announcements by altnets in the past 6 weeks alone, with a total investment value of £1.4 billion. I mean, has the world finally woken up to the importance of value of true high-speed broadband access? Chris, what do you think?
I think over the last 12, 18 months, as the pandemic hit and as the services were kept in place, I think we became very aware that the fixed network was handling the bulk of that change. Obviously, in a mobile, of course, it was important, but actually the majority of connections in those countries where fixed is sort of very well dispersed really carried the bulk, did the heavy lifting during the pandemic. And people realizing what sort of services they're consuming across that, both home usage and, of course, office usage from the home as well, I think really emphasised people's needs to have that high quality of service, high level of service coming from the fixed environment. Now, of course, we ended up always in a hybrid situation where the availability of mobile will allow us to go off and do things on a separate connection. And as 5G comes in, perhaps we'll do that more and more. But fundamentally, the fixed broadband connection is the workhorse, is delivering the bulk of the service into residential communities in many markets. So the awareness from the investment community, I think, has been there. I think they now see that longer term return. And I think that's been one of the problems with the telcos, is they've been pretty much focused on the short term return with a new wave of, say, 5G, with the move into those adjacent markets of sport and enterprise and so on. But actually the reality is the long term return is a well understood and reliable income level. And that's why the funds are looking at it. So it's, I think, also encouraging the telcos themselves to think longer term. They've still got to keep the stock market happy, of course, so they still need to do that quarter on quarter reporting. But I think it's changing the horizon for many telcos as to where they see the investment. And I think the whole broadband issue and the way broadband is delivered and the way telcos think about how they fit into that broader digital ecosystem is really important for that long-term investment.
Absolutely. Great points there, Chris. And it's just been a great catalyst, I think, in the industry. The more companies that are springing up, the more investors that are getting into this space, so it encourages more. So really exciting times, I think, for the fixed broadband sector. So it's that time of the show when we need to see how our containerized beverage function leaderboard is shaping up and where Ronan from Adtran fits into the mix.
Yes, well, Ray, only the one guest to add to the board this time. And yes, Ronan is right there in the coffee group. Or perhaps that should be cluster, the coffee cluster. We've got to get with the cloud native speak these days. And in fact, Ronan gets his very own column for now. It is disappointing to see only 2 outliers. We still have this dominant duopoly, which I guess is kind of appropriate in our industry.
Is this foretelling how Open RAN will play out, do you think? Lots more choice. You can have Vimto and Coke as well as tea and coffee, but ultimately everybody still goes back to the 2 old guard hands that they've trusted for many years. We will find out. So great. And also, what's keeping us at Telecom TV busy at the moment, Guy? I mean, we've got quite a few things coming down the pipe, right?
Yeah, we certainly do, Ray. We're just 2 weeks away from our Edgeonomics Summit, and that's returning for its 2nd year on Telecom TV. And we're going to be covering a lot of ground during those 3 days. And that starts Tuesday, the 22nd of June. and we'll be discussing partnership scenarios for edge hosting of 5G, new business models, integrating edge with Open RAN, and also trying to explain the whole justification for telco edge computing. And then a week later, well, the whole industry will be focused on mobile and 5G in particular, and we've got some big surprises in store.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to sharing those with the wider world. And Chris, has the appearance of that burning orb in the sky changed your plans for the coming months? What's on the Lewis calendar?
Well, the interesting thing is that the sort of the cadence of activity around the industry has been distorted by disruption to MWC. Many more events going on, so actually no drop off in attendance of either creating content or consuming content. The only difference is I do it more often lying in a deck chair out on my lawn, because being blind, I don't need to look at the screen and I can listen whilst reclining in my chair, Ray.
Even if it's only for 1 week, Chris, it's good to know that you're getting some decent weather at last.
Well, Ray, there was some natural interference yesterday whilst on one particular call, when a pigeon lodged in the tree high above my head deposited on me and had me scurrying for a change of clothes before the next episode.
Well, I think that's generally known around the world as good luck. So I think you should buy a lottery ticket or invest in a telco or something like that. I don't know. Do something wild, because your luck is now in, Chris. Okay. Well, what a great way to end today's show. Thank you to Chris and Guy for joining me today, and thank you for watching. And let the Euros commence.